Presented by Listen Headlines, latest world news from trusted sources.
New York Times World News. November 22, 1919 America, New York. 2 Canadian journalists arrested at Indigenous protest are freed on bail. Journalist groups denounced the arrest of a photographer and a filmmaker covering an Indigenous pipeline protest in British Columbia. A photograph taken in 2019 by Amber Bracken while on assignment for the New York Times showed a confrontation between the police and Indigenous activists in British Columbia.
BBC News World. November 22, 1910 America, New York. 6 ways shoebox-sized satellites are trying to change the world. The CubeSat began as an educational tool but is now helping out humanity. BBC News World. November 22, 1909 America, New York. Online child abuse rises in India during COVID-19 pandemic. The demand and distribution of abuse imagery shot up in India as lockdowns confined people to their homes. BBC News World. November 22, 1906 America, New York. Can South Africa embrace renewable energy from the sun? South Africa's main electricity company Eskom plans to switch from using coal to renewable energy. BBC News World. November 22, 1905 America, New York. Ethiopia's Tigray conflict. What are Facebook and Twitter doing about hate speech? Critics say social media firms are not doing enough to curb online hate speech around Ethiopia's war. BBC News World. November 22, 1903 America, New York. Iran nuclear program. Threat of Israeli strike grows. As Iran's nuclear program forges ahead, some see Israel running out of options to thwart it.
November 22, 1859 America, New York. Kevin Spacey ordered to pay nearly $31 million to House of Cards production company. An arbitrator has ordered Kevin Spacey to pay almost $31 million to Media Rights Capital, the production company behind House of Cards, the Netflix series in which the actor starred for 5 seasons until he was fired in 2017. November 22, 1830 America, New York. White House. Biden intends to run for re-election in 2024. Analysis. The Biden 2024 debate is a straight-up loser for Democrats. November 22, 1815 America, New York. Conservative provocateurs, reporter on latest Trump allies to get subpoenaed. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6 riot issued a new round of subpoenas to 5 of former President Donald Trump's allies directly involved in planning Stop the Steal rallies, including longtime Republican operative Roger Stone and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
RT World News. November 22, 1813 America, New York. Israel begins vaccinating youngest age group yet. Israel has begun administering COVID-19 vaccines to kids aged between 5 and 11, the youngest age group yet to be approved for the jabs, with tens of thousands of immunizations scheduled for use in the coming days.
World CBS News, com. November 22, 1811 America, New York. Biden skips traditional press conference with Trudeau and Obrador. For the first time in the history of the summit, the world leaders won't have a news conference.
November 22, 1808 America, New York. Arbery killing trial. Attorneys deliver closing arguments in case of joggers shooting. Travis McMichael's attorney painted Sautia Shores, where McMichael killed Ahmaud Arbery last year, as stricken with crime, its residents as living in fear and his client as a well-trained former Coast Guardsman who was only protecting himself and his neighborhood.
BBC News World. November 22, 1748 America, New York. Wisconsin witnesses recount how SUV mowed down paradegoers. Little girls flying through the air. Witnesses recount the Waukesha Christmas parade horror.
November 22, 1736 America, New York. Dems call for Biden to ban oil exports and tap emergency reserves. Nearly a dozen congressional Democrats are urging President Joe Biden to combat high gas prices by not only releasing barrels from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve but by banning U.S. oil exports, according to a letter viewed by CNN.
RT World News. November 22, 1727 America, New York. Top EU ministers in quarantine over positive COVID test. French Prime Minister Jean Castex has tested positive for COVID-19 after returning from a trip to Belgium. 5 Belgian ministers, including PM Alexander De Croo, have self-quarantined as a precaution as well.
November 22, 1726 America, New York. Defense teams finish their closing arguments in the trial of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Jurors in trial over Arbery's killing heard from more than 20 witnesses. Here's what we learned. November 22, 1723 America, New York. New January 6 committee subpoenas issued for 5 Trump allies including Roger Stone and Alex Jones. Al Gore was a man about his election loss, unlike Trump, federal judge says.
New York Times World News. November 22, 1715 America, New York. Judge dismisses criminal charges in Holyoke soldiers' home outbreak. The judge wrote that administrators could not be held legally responsible because the veterans in the case had been exposed before 2 units at the home were merged.
CNN.com World. November 22, 1714 America, New York. Portugal's power production goes coal-free long before deadline. Portugal shut down its last remaining coal plant over the weekend, ending the use of the polluting material for electricity generation and becoming the 4th country in the European Union to do so.
RT World News. November 22, 1714 America, New York. Watch. Decoration behind U.S.-backed Venezuelan leader falls apart. Juan Guaido, the opposition politician recognized by the U.S. as interim president of Venezuela, was in the midst of a passionate speech when the coat of arms mounted on the stage behind him collapsed on the floor.
November 22, 1703 America, New York. 2 top European destinations move into the CDC's highest risk category for travel. Photos. Europeans protest restrictions, bodies pile up outside hospital morgue in a nation battling vaccine skepticism. November 22, 1656 America, New York. Selena Gomez announces the launch of her new mental health platform Wondermind. Talking about mental health is good for you, according to pop star, actor and producer Selena Gomez, and she's determined to be the catalyst for positive change. November 22, 1655 America, New York. Robert Redford. This magical place deserves our protection, and it's one of many. I was 11 years old when I left Los Angeles for the first time. My mother, wanting to celebrate my recovery from a mild case of polio, drove us to Yosemite National Park. November 22, 1649 America, New York. Canada ends COVID-19 policy turning back asylum seekers between border crossings. Canada is ending its pandemic-era policy of turning back asylum seekers trying to cross into the country between ports of entry, according to a revised policy document released on Sunday.